Round of applause, please, for Carrigaline, ladies and gentlemen, our musicians today. Fantastic. Hello, and welcome to the Hot Shop Live Show, right here from the Museum of Glass in Tacoma, Washington. I'm Greg Owen, your MC for the day. This month, we're focusing on recent developments in the Irish art glass industry, such as the closing of the Waterford Crystal Factory and its impact on glass artists working in Ireland. We are honored to be hosting several special guests today, including our visiting artist this week here at the museum, Mr. Fred Curtis, master crystal carver and sculptor. Fred has been working with our team since Wednesday, creating parts for a bald eagle, which will be displayed at a John F. Kennedy Memorial back in the small town in Ireland where the former president's grandfather was born. Today, we are working on the head of the sculpture. Fred Curtis began his career sculpting crystal almost 40 years ago in Waterford, Ireland. Throughout his career, his unique sculpting talent has earned him worldwide recognition and respect. Trained at Waterford Crystal, Fred has worked with some of the most influential names in his field and has sculpted crystal commissions for public figures including Mother Teresa, the Queen of England, former U.S. Presidents Bill Clinton and Jimmy Carter, and actor Clint Eastwood. In 2006, after nearly 30 years with Waterford Crystal, Fred embarked on a new challenge and set up his own studio in Bannow Bay, County Wexford, where he continues to be inspired by the natural beauty which surrounds him. He now enjoys a new freedom of expression that allows him to create individual works in crystal, demonstrating his skill as a master of his craft. And folks, it is my pleasure to introduce this gentleman. He's a little nervous. He's not used to being on camera. Fred Curtis, ladies and gentlemen. Please, round of applause. Fred, could you please tell us more about the work you do cutting crystal, and how is it different from cutting regular glass?
Well, the crystal is much softer. When we have the crystal, it's a much softer material, so the wheels cut in very easy into it. But then again, you have a lot, there's a big reflection of the crystal because of the lead content, which is a very clear glass. Whereas the normal glass like here, I was working on it this morning, and it was really, really hard on the wheels. So it's a much slower process with the ordinary glass. And then, of course, it has to be all hand polished as well, whereas with the crystal, at the final polish, there's a lot of hand polishing, but the very final polish will be done in an acid bath, which finishes, it gives it that really, really sparkle finish.
And, excuse me, do you have much experience working with the type of glass we're working with, or have you just primarily only been working with crystal throughout your career?
Well, yeah, mainly it's been crystal, because I've been with Waterford now 42 years since I was 3. But yeah, I have worked with ordinary glass as well, you know, the soda glass. But it's as I say, it's very, very hard on the wheels, and especially on the stone wheels. But it's just a slower. It's the same process, but a little bit slower. Yeah.
Now, I love this story you told me earlier about getting fired from Waterford Crystal for doing what you do, sculpting the crystal. And then you ended up starting the sculpture division of the entire factory there. Could you tell the audience a little bit about how you came to become a sculptor rather than a carver of vessels?
Yeah, sure. Well, when I started in Waterford, it was really a summer job I took, and so that was originally, and then they put me on a 5-year apprenticeship. So they gave me a couple of weeks to make up my mind. Do I go back to school? Do I stay on this career? My dad wanted me to go back to school. My mum left it up to me. So I always liked it from the start, and I said I'd stay with it. So I qualified as a cutter after 5 years, as a glass cutter. That's cutting all the different designs in the Waterford repertoire at the time onto the surface of the glass. And in the meantime, in my spare time, I used to do little sculptures, illegally a little bit, I must say. Like a vase would break or something, and I'd take the solid foot, and I'd make a little butterfly or a bird or some sort of a little animal or a horse's head or something. And my colleagues in the cutting shop would see me doing this, and they wanted one for their girlfriends or their mother or whatever. And they would do my production, because we worked the piece rate system, while I made their little horse's head or whatever it was they wanted. And the cutting manager, of course, saw this happening a few times and cut me at it, warned me not to be doing it, and of course I continued to do it and eventually fired me for it. And then the chief designer saw the pieces that he had, they were half finished, that he'd seen him in the foreman's office. He was chief designer at that time, it was Miroslav Havel. He was originally from the Czech Republic. And he called me out and asked me would I be interested in doing it full time. So that was the start of the sculpting department. Yeah, so it grew quite a lot from there then, because at the time Waterford didn't do any solid items. They'd just done vases, bowls, all the hollowware. So then it started up a whole new area, like in the animal figurines and clocks, picture frames, all that type of thing. So it was quite a boost for me to go from being fired to be the sculptor.
I should say so. That was the start of an illustrious career. Can you tell us about some of the special commissions that you've done for some of the famous folks and your personal connection to any of these commissions?
Well, that again grew out of the sculpting department. Originally was set up to do the little animal figurines for production. So they would be, I would make the initial model, and then a mold would have been made from that, and then it would have been produced in quantities, to supply the stores. And how the special commissions came in, then I started making bigger pieces, start getting a little bit adventurous. And of course then I could go to the blown room and order the glass, get whatever glass I needed in the size of the blocks. And I started making like commission pieces. So they started coming to me then and looking for people, for VIPs that would be visiting the country. Like the government often would commission Waterford to do pieces for visiting presidents or whatever. And I used to design up pieces and then make them in that sense. So over the years it became everybody. I think the government gave nothing else but Waterford crystal as gifts. So it was like Mother Trees and all the different dignitaries that visited. And plus then in the States here as well, we've done a lot of golf trophies and for the basketball, baseball, the football, the World Series, all the different ones. So there was a lot of different pieces came in.
Now, we're just about to remove this eagle head here. Could you tell us a little bit about this commission that we've been working on here with you at the museum this week?
Yeah, well, when I got here, I thought they think I was crazy when I showed them those drawings that I wanted the bald eagle. But the guys are wonderful, wonderful blowers. I mean, absolutely fabulous. So we made a head initially just as a practice piece, and it was quite big. And I thought, well, if I use this head, the body is going to be even bigger, and the wings are going to be huge. And but the guys just weren't phased by it. They said, "We'll try it, we'll do it, we'll go with it." So then I ended up getting an eagle that's probably twice the size of what I originally planned, which is good because I want that to be the centerpiece of the actual entire sculpture when it's all together. The bald eagle will be the American representative on the piece. And I wanted it made here in the States because the rest of it is going to be made in Ireland. So it brings the whole sculpture together, being the Irish-American, and then John F. Kennedy being Irish-American. So I think it brings it all together,
So perfect. And folks, just to bring you up to speed, we just placed that eagle's head into the annealing oven over on the left side of the shop there. It's a 920 degree oven, and everything that we make that we want to keep, we need to cool it down slowly, and so to work the stress out of the glass. So we just finished one eagle. Sarah over here has some colored glass. We're going to start another part here now with some color, and so we'll just continue to work as we're going here. And this brings up a good point. Everything that we saw when we were looking at your slides earlier is in clear glass. Is this the first time that you've been working in color? Is this a new thing for you?
Yes, it's totally new for me because I'm always, like in the crystal, it's totally clear. And I use cutting as a texture rather than the color. So rather than changing color, I'd use different types of cutting to kind of portray that off the piece. And to work with the color now is I think it's going to be a little bit of a challenge when I go to the sculpting and the cutting because the color is overlaid onto the glass, and I'm going to have to be very careful not to cut through and maybe leave just a a blotch in the thing there. But I think it's going to work out. It's deep enough in the glass that it left me plenty of room to work on the surface. You know, to put on the feather textures and all the different details that I need to go on there, which is going to take quite a long time. Yeah, probably another couple of months, I'd say. Yeah.
So a couple months, you imagine, of cutting to finish this piece before it's done.
Yeah, I think at least, maybe 2 or 3 months. I think it'll be, it's going to be a lot of work.
To say the least. Thank you so much. Fred Curtis, ladies and gentlemen, again, our visiting artist here. And we're not done with Fred by any means. We'll let you go back to work. Throughout the day, we'll cut back into the cold shop and we can actually see Fred doing the work carving. Behind the hot equipment is where our cold working is located. And so we'll get to watch him working on a eagle's head. Next up, I'd like to introduce my friend and an esteemed colleague as well, Mr. Walter Lieberman. And Walt's going to talk a little bit more about lead crystal and how it differs from the kind of glass that we're working with, soda lime glass. Ladies and gentlemen, Walter Lieberman here.
Thank you, Greg. So one of the questions that we most often get asked here is, what's the difference between crystal and glass? Crystal is actually a type of glass. They're both glass. Crystal is a glass which contains between 25 and 35% lead. The lead does several things for the glass. First of all, it makes the glass sparkle. The lead, when you put lead in glass, it makes glass denser. The denser the glass is, the more it bends light, the more it bends light, the more it breaks up into little rainbows. So if you think about air, air is very thin. It doesn't sparkle at all. Water is thicker. It bends light more. It sparkles more. And if you think about diamonds, diamonds are really dense. They really bend light a lot, and that's why diamonds sparkle. And so it's the same thing with the lead glass. The lead glass is shown at its best advantage when the lead glass is thick, because it really bends the light a lot and gives you a chance to really appreciate its beauty. Okay. Because the lead glass bends light, it's also used in lenses and telescopes because it has a strong influence on the light. So you can see in that picture up there how much the light bends. Normally, we think of lead crystal as being clear, but you can actually make lead crystal in any color that you want, just like ordinary glass. The first lead glass for blowing was made in England. A man named George Ravenscroft developed a lead glass in the end of the 1600s. And that's when we really get the lead crystal that we know today. So one of the things that the lead does, in addition to helping it sparkle, is it makes the glass easy to cut and easy to polish. It makes the glass softer. When it's softer, it's easier to cut. It's also easier to polish. Glass cutting started in Bohemia, Czechoslovakia. It moved to England and eventually to Ireland. The reason that glass companies moved to Ireland was glass in England was taxed. Glass in Ireland was tax-free. So the English glassmakers moved their factories to Ireland where they didn't have to pay taxes. In fact, the taxes were so strictly controlled that the annealing ovens where you cool off the glass were padlocked. And the only person who had the key to the padlock was the tax man. So we would come there in the morning, unlock it, count all the glass you made, and charge you your taxes. So now today, lead crystal is considered the symbol of refinement and luxury in beautiful glass. So now I'm going to turn you over to our educational coordinator, Bonnie Wright, and she's going to talk to one of our guest artists, Roisin de Boutelaire.
Thanks, Walt. I'm up here in the balcony with Roisin de Boutelaire. She's the curator of our exhibition, Caution, Fragile Irish Glass Tradition and Transition, that's on display downstairs. So I encourage everyone here today to go check it out before they leave the museum today. Roisin is a glass artist and a curator. She is a co-founder of the Glass Society of Ireland Contemporary Makers and a pioneer of contemporary Irish glass art. Her artworks are represented in public and private collections in Ireland, Britain, Japan, and the US. So, Roisin, we'd like to ask you a few questions about Caution Fragile, and maybe you could elaborate a little bit about how this exhibition was your idea, how you came upon the idea, and just the conception of everything Caution Fragile.
Okay, good morning, everybody. My idea for this exhibition came directly because in 2009 the glass factory at Waterford went into receivership, and all of the contents of the factory were put online for sale around the world. And at that time there were 1,400 people working in the factory, and at the height of the might of the factory there were 4,000 people working there. So in one small town in Ireland, the picture of glassmaking was changing dramatically as all of this equipment in this massive factory was being sold worldwide. And I felt that as an artist I had a voice to actually say something about this, to prevent the skills leaving the country and for people to really appreciate the wonder and beauty of what we have in Ireland within the glassmaking tradition. So in doing that, I approached 3 master glassmakers, Fred Curtis, who is here with us today, Eamon Hartley, who is a copper wheel engraver, and Greg Sullivan, who is also a copper wheel engraver. Copper wheel engraving is almost really a specialist art form, which is a way of drawing into the surface of the glass by taking away layers of the glass which make the image project forward. It's an optical illusion, and it's very, very difficult to do, and very, very few people in the world are actually working in this technique now. The reason being is that it's very, very slow and takes a very long time to make, and so therefore pieces are very expensive to buy, and in the factory this became less and less of a thing that they were doing because they were trying to compete with world markets and making things much cheaper. So I approached these 3 men and asked them if they would be interested in working with me and putting together a picture of what we can make in Ireland, given the opportunity. And the Museum of Glass was very important in that regard, because at the time I had a residency here as an artist in residence, just like Fred has, and I decided to start working on making the blanks, the objects of the pieces with this magnificent team here. And so that was the basis of the exhibition. We made a lot of the pieces that you see in the exhibition here in this workshop. I also made some at the Pilchuck Glass School, where I was teaching, and used some of the pieces as demonstration objects, and then also made some pieces in handmade glass in Ireland, which is a very small workshop right beside the big factory, and it is set up by 3 former workers of the factory after the factory closed down. So we made the pieces and then handed them over to each of those masters, who then brought their own iconography to it, their own story, and we tried to put together both the story of the factory itself, of what it was like to work in an industrial process, reproducing hundreds of pieces over and over and over, and also to tell a little bit about the passion that they have for making glass and what it actually means to have lost the opportunity to make glass in that way. And so trying to bring both the story of Ireland, the story of our glassmaking tradition, and the beauty of what we can do given the opportunity is part of this exhibition and the importance of it.
Thank you, and it's a spectacular exhibition. Everything in there is attractive and gorgeous. She mentioned blanks too, just to clarify for everybody in the audience that a blank is an uncut piece of glass. So when Roisin was here, she was helping to make those that were later cut or decorated. So Roisin, tell us, what can our visitors do, or viewers online, to help keep traditions alive?
Well, I think first of all is to talk about the beauty of glass in itself, in that it's a transparent material that translates light, that conducts light. So first of all, just even talking about glass is a big thing for us, that we have a valid reason for using glass. Everybody has glass in their homes. The windows are made of glass, buildings are held up by glass, we drink out of glass. But if you think about where this is coming from and who's actually making it, that's the first thing. Then looking at maybe traditional pieces that maybe were not so attractive, but actually seeing, because of the context, because they're not in fashion anymore, but actually seeing the beauty of those things and thinking about the people behind who made them. And cherishing it. I mean, I think that's one of the wonderful things about our crystal tradition. It was given always as a gift, as a sort of an emblem of heritage as well. So there is a heritage within glass that can also be handed down to other people. Bringing them to places like this, to the Museum of Glass, or to other places that are actually making glass, small workshops around where you live. Supporting your local artist is really important. If you can't afford to buy the pieces, just encouraging them, talking about them, giving them an opportunity to show in different places. And that is very important for us, that we have had the opportunity to show here at the Museum of Glass. I think that having an opportunity to show in such a magnificent museum has made people think about the value of this work and to think seriously about what it is that we're actually throwing away if we're not actually hanging on to these skills. So that is one thing. Buying glass, of course, is very, very important. Supporting it from a collection point of view, or buying them as gifts, or buying them because you love them, that is something that is very important as well. All artists are interested in creating work and also selling it on afterwards, or most artists would be. And if you can't afford it at the time, just go and talk to the artist. Everybody will work on part payment sales if you get to know somebody. And I think the wonderful thing is that when you actually engage with an artist, that you will get the story behind the work, that you'll become more involved in the work in itself, and then that becomes much more of an important thing within your own collection. I think that we live in a throwaway society here, where we are happy to throw things away. But once you actually have an emotional connection to something, then that makes it far more valuable to you. It doesn't have to be expensive. It can be, something that is not so expensive, or it can be something that you really want to buy in the future and that you buy in small installments. So that is very important.
Very good. And one more question for you, Roisin. What do you think would be the future of contemporary glass in Ireland right now?
That's a very, very big question to ask in a very short space of time. I think it's very important that we look at what we're actually throwing away and that we guard what we have at the moment, but it's also really important that we look into the future and that we prepare for that. So encouraging young designers to work, putting out work that is really of good quality, that makes a statement either in its craftsmanship or else in a conceptual way, is very, very important. This show, we are hoping to travel and is open for that purpose, for people to come and approach the museum about actually travelling the show, seeing, bringing our story out there to say that there are many wonderful skilled hands in Ireland that are waiting to make glass. We're looking for an opportunity in being able to do that. Just this week, in fact, there has been a public tender call for a glass centre in Ireland, and that has come directly from pressure in international circumstances. Just, for example, this exhibition being here, seeing the work on an international stage and evaluating it as something that's really well worth keeping. So that's a very important step for us.
That's great. That's great news. So we'd like to thank Roisin for spending time with us here for her interview, and I'd like to pass it now to Greg, who's down in the cold shop, I believe, checking in on Fred and some cutting progress on an eagle's head, I think.
And folks, we're back in our cold shop here, and we get to see actually the magic that Fred is creating. Again, he's carving the glass, currently using a stone wheel. So we've got these beautiful lathes that were manufactured in the Czech Republic, imported here to the United States. And chalked up in the lathe is, again, a wheel made out of stone. Fred has already carved into the eagle's head. He's carved the feathers, the eyes, the beak, all the details. And now he's going with this wheel and just fine-tuning his carving. He's starting to polish it out a little bit. As he said during the interview, the polishing process is quite a bit longer using the hard glass that we're working with here. so we can get the camera in a little bit close, and we'll just look over Fred's shoulder now, and you can see how he does what he's doing. He's not working with any pre-made lines. He carved all those lines in just from memory. He did not draw the eagle out. He just went in there. We sculpted it rough, and then he started to contour where the eyes were, the edges of the beak, the contours of the head. And I've been watching him throughout the week, and it's just amazing to me how he pulls the contours out of what is basically just starts as a lump of glass. So the wheel is obviously spinning very fast. We're using water as a lubricant. If we don't have that water in there, the glass will get too hot and would crack in his hands. And you notice on the floor and back here as well, we're all wearing eye protection because, again, if that wheel grabs the glass, it could go flying out of his hands and shatter. And we don't want that to happen. Back in Ireland, using the lead crystal, the final polish would be done in an acid bath. And we don't really use that technology here at the museum. We do all our polishing the traditional way, the old-fashioned way, using all the steps up through pumice and cerium. And so Fred has got a little bit different technique in store for working on this eagle. And again, he's done just this clear head, but all the pieces that we've made, the body and the tail, the wings, the talons, all made out of color, they'll all need to get carved. So this clear one is this sample, and then we'll get into the actual carving of the work in the colored piece. Yeah. So I've just asked Fred if he would pause for a moment on the stone wheel and switch gears onto this other lathe, which has a diamond wheel chalked up in it. And we've got the first body and tail of the colored eagle to work on. Where it was attached to the blowpipe, we've got a chunk of clear glass on the end called the punty, and we need to carve that off now. And as we know, the diamond is much, much harder than the glass, so the diamond will easily cut through that glass punty on the end. And you can see it's a very big, heavy piece of glass that Fred's working with. He'll remove that, and then he'll start to define the tail feathers and the feathers on the side. He'll also need to find some flat spots which he will attach the wings of the eagle to, as well as attaching the legs and the talons. And of course, the head needs to be attached to the body as well. So as he's sculpting, he'll also be creating those places where the other parts of the bird will be attached. Perfect. So folks, that's just a little bit of the couple month-long process that Fred will be going through to create this eagle. And this gives you a taste of what Fred does, again, master carver in clear and colored now glass. I'd like to hand it back to Bonnie and our band Carrigaline. So take it away, Bonnie.
Thank you, you guys. That was lovely. Let's hear it again, once again, for Carrigaline. So just quickly, fellas, so I'd like to introduce, we have Andrew, Kieran, and Bob here from the group, and I'd like to ask them a few questions. Could you guys independently tell me about the traditional instruments that you're using here and how challenging it might be in today's, contemporary music scene in order to compete with all the other bands that are out there? So let's start off with the bodhran, right? The traditional drum.
Yes, it's a traditional drum. I picked this up in Dingle actually last year when we were touring there, and it's a very traditional sounding drum, but it's also a contemporary sound. More current music, I think, being playing on this style.
Great, thank you. And Kieran?
So these are Ireland pipes. The word Ireland is also the Gaelic word for elbow because I use my elbows, both of them, one to blow the bellows and fill the bag, and then to distribute the air down through the chanter and the system. These are 3 drones down here and some regulators and the chanter itself.
This guitar is turned into an octave mandolin. It's tuned all in fifths, and it allows me to play a lot of nice open chords to go along with the music.
So what do you feel about my question about the challenging contemporary music field that you all are a part of? Do you find that it is challenging to use traditional instruments? Are people receptive to traditions, and especially with Irish traditional music?
So we find that when we play music, people either hate the music or they love the music. They're on the floor and their knees saying, please give us more, or they run away. It's got to do with the belly button and the drone, the bass drone, I think. But basically, people do love Irish music. The problem is they don't understand the difference between tunes. It sounds all the same very often. And there's some very interesting nuances in the distribution of the notes through the songs and also the different tempos. So I think that people are becoming more educated, but it's still a problem.
Well, I love it. So you guys have done a good job at probably converting a lot of people today in our audience. Just one more question. You've just completed this musical tour of Ireland, I believe. So how did American artists in Ireland fare? What do you guys think?
The Irish love the song Country Roads. And we performed that one many times, and it was very well received. Otherwise, performing Irish music in Ireland was great. It was a good time,
Great. Well, I'd like to thank the band for visiting with us today and being a big part of our Irish Tradition and Transition themed show. I'd like to pass it on down to Greg, who's down on the floor with the team, finishing or working on another Eagle's head, I believe. Greg.
Yeah, thank you so much, Bonnie, and thanks once again, Carrigaline, for the fantastic sounds that you're providing for us. We are working on the finishing touches, as Bonnie said, of this eagle head here. Sarah has the head in the glory hole, and we've got, again, the beak attached to it. Gabe's been working on how the beak attaches to the head. We want a nice streamlined form, and also communicating with Fred, our visiting artist, Mr. Curtis here, about how that attachment is going on, because he needs to get in there and be able to cut. Gabe has just asked Ben to blow through the blowpipe a little bit. The beak is solid, but the head itself is a bubble. So we've just inflated it up a little bit more. And the final steps will be drawing the beak out a little bit longer and then putting that characteristic curve down onto the very tip of the beak. Again, we're working in parts. You can see many of the parts on the table here. We have a few bodies. That very long bubble in the middle is going to be cut in half. That will be a pair of wings for the bird. We've made some legs and the talons for the bird, and obviously a few different heads out of color. Some of the birds will be seated upright, and some of them will be in this attitude as if they're flying through space. And as the crew continues to work, it's now, unfortunately, about time to bring this installment of our Hot Shop Live show to a close. We'd like to thank our featured guests, most notably Mr. Fred Curtis, Roisin de Butler, and Carrigaline. And we'd also like to thank you for watching, whether you're here in person in our audience or checking us out live online. Please stay tuned for our next webisode of Hot Shop Live, featuring the Italian maestro Lino Tagliapietra. We'll be celebrating Lino's 80th birthday on October 19th. If you'd like to attend Lino's show for free, you can pick up a card with the web address to a survey to gain free access on October 19th. And once again, thank you everybody for being part of our Hot Shop Live show. And Caroline, please play us out. Send us home. Thanks again, everybody.